Hey guys, Dr. Plague here. Has ditching your bad habit been on your to-do list for a while? Well, I'm happy to bring you today's sponsor, Fume. Fume has a great ergonomic design. It feels familiar in the hand, and it's just a lot of fun to use. It's easy too. You just slip in the cartridge, pop it in, and you're good to go. No smoke, no batteries, just a tasty blast of air whenever you need it. I'm quite partial to the mint myself, but it comes in many fun flavors. There's no cleaning, no recharging, and it's there when you need it, wherever you need it. There's no smoke, no added chemicals, and it's really just a great alternative to whatever might be holding your chain these days. Plus, it comes with this cool little magnetic base, which is just... wow, I really enjoyed it more than I thought I would. So, if you're interested in kicking your habit, go check out Fume today, and go ahead and use my code so they know that I sent you. And thanks to Fume for supporting the channel. I would love to simply study at home, but it's tough to concentrate for more than a few minutes when your parents are arguing 24/7 in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment. I'm the type of guy who needs to focus for hours to consider it productive. Despite everything, the screaming would have been more than worth it if I had anticipated the following events. The night of the incident was Friday. It was 4 days prior to my final chemistry exam before the Christmas break. I walked into the study hall at 11:43 p.m. and greeted the old man who was sitting at the information desk. He also happened to be the man who funded the study hall, so whenever he asked me to reiterate the mandatory rules, which was every time I walked in, regardless on whether it was the first or the 500th time, I had no choice but to do it. Let me get you up to speed on these rules. I'll spare you the details and only tell you about the most important ones. Make sure every single light in the study hall is on until you leave. When you leave, make sure the door sign says closed. When leaving, make sure you are illuminated at all times. Never, and I mean never, turn off a light that's above you. Make sure you're not in the dark either, not even for a split second. If it's still dark out, do not forget to lock the door when you walk out. If the sun's already out by the time you leave, I'll lock it myself. Just leave it. If I hear any humming, ignore it. Do not go check or look at what it is. I never heard anyone humming outside the study hall, but rules is rules. Never pick up the phone for anyone after I leave, no matter what. This never happened either. Do not, I repeat, do not stay in the study hall after 6 a.m. You're not allowed to come back until 9 a.m. After reiterating the rules that have been drilled into me more than the periodic table, I dapped up the old man before sitting down. I always sat down in the same seat. The first few hours went by in a flash, as always. However, I got disrupted at 2:30 a.m. That's because it's when the old man goes home for the night, leaving the massive study hall to, well, just me. Today, I chose to hang around for a little longer. Quite frankly, I didn't want to get another slap from my parents after realizing I got an A- on my final exam. I had to remain focused and study for a little longer. A few hours more, which felt more like 10 minutes, went by. The clock had finally hit 5:55 a.m. I wouldn't have realized it if it wasn't for the alarm I set for myself. Jolting myself back to reality, I began to set everything up to make sure I didn't upset the old man. He can get a little cranky sometimes. My brain was completely fried. My vision was blurry too. I packed my bags and turned off all the lights in the necessary order to ensure that I stayed true to the rules. I've done this so many times that I didn't even have to think about it anymore. As I opened the front entrance, I turned off the final light. Concurrently, the clock hit 6 a.m., It was still dark outside, as dark as when I came in at 11:43 p.m. Inhaling the cold, fresh air of the countryside, I stuttered as I heard a loud ringing sound piercing my eardrums. It was the rotary phone on the old man's desk. "Shit," I muttered under my breath. I didn't expect it to be so loud. I rubbed my eyes and yawned. Unfortunately, that only made my eyes heavier. I should turn it off before I call it a night. Taking a step back inside, I gasped as I remembered that I had to turn on the lights whenever I was inside. I did so, accordingly, before reaching out to the phone. Realization struck me as one of the rules popped back into my head, making me stop. Never pick up the phone for anyone after I leave. Oh, right, I thought to myself. Better for me to leave it. I sighed and scratched the back of my head. Can't wait to finally sleep, I told myself, yawning. As I turned back around, my ears picked up on a sound from far away. A sound that kept getting louder by the second, although only slightly. I don't know why, but the sound alone sent shivers down my spine, waking me up instantly. It echoed across the study hall. As it got louder, I felt an insane pressure weighing down on me. It felt similar to the pressure one gets during sleep paralysis. As I felt my chest being crushed, I deeply inhaled and exhaled. I looked back at my shaky palms, eyes widening. What the hell, I thought to myself. What's wrong with me? It was a strange sensation, one I had never felt before. Everything felt off, eerie. Suddenly, I heard a loud thud coming from behind me, the sound of a heavy object crashing onto the ground. Instinctually, I turned around and jumped backwards, screaming. On the other side of the hall stood a shadowy figure. It was over 8 feet tall. Its lankiness was towering over me, its arms looking long enough to reach out and grab my head. It's where the humming tunes were coming from. At that very moment, I felt completely unsafe, as if the figure was going to jump out at me. All I could hear was my heart beating in my throat. "Screw this," I shouted. I turned around, bolting out the door, not even looking back once. As I was running, I could feel something chasing after me from behind. Despite that, I couldn't hear anything besides my breathing and quiet grunting. As soon as I made it home, I slammed the door shut and locked it. Throughout the night, my mind was racing with different thoughts. No matter what, I couldn't take the feeling that something was close to me, keeping an eye on me from nearby. Whenever I tried to close my eyes, I could see the figure rushing towards me at a speed I couldn't visualize. Before it could catch me, I opened my eyes with a loud gasp. However, the pressure persisted. Who was the figure standing on the other side of the hall? It looked nothing like the old man. Eventually, I dozed off and woke up a few hours later to a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Hey, you that kid who always goes to the study hall every night?" it wrote. My heart skipped a beat. I chose to ignore it. No way I was going to let it trouble me because of some stupid rules. It must have been my nerves of the exam coming up. As I see the same number typing again, I blocked it. I had no interest in getting involved in whatever I'd seen yesterday. That night, I readied myself for another study session. I decided that I would leave the study hall at the same time as the old man to avoid a similar situation. He left about 2:30 a.m. I wanted to tell him about last night, but I was scared that I would get in trouble. I nervously walked to the study hall and greeted the old-timer. However, something felt off. He was staring into my eyes a lot more intently than usual, even after I recited the rules again to reassure him. He didn't seem mad or anything, just off. I figured it was paranoia. No way he could know anything about yesterday, right? After all, I didn't break any rules, and he wasn't even there for most of it, right? I sat down at the same chair as last night. Discomfort grew as I glanced to see the old man staring right at me from his seat. I took a deep breath and put on my earphones. Minutes later, I received a text. It was from the old man. I had his contact saved just in case, so it wasn't out of the ordinary to receive a message from him. However, why would he text me when he was right here in the room? Hey, I wanted to let you know that I'm running some errands out of town at the moment. I think you've been in the study hall enough times for me to trust you alone for one night. Don't mess anything up. I'll be back Monday morning, it wrote. My heart stopped as I read it. Running errands out of town. I started shaking, rereading it over and over again. Running errands out of town. I slowly looked up, the old man at the information desk still staring right at me. The pressure I felt on my chest last night came back. The light started to flicker subtly as my breathing became shallower and quicker. My body tensed up, and I was paralyzed. Out of town. If that's the case, then who am I in the study hall with?
Good evening, everyone. It's me, Dr. Plague. I'm glad you made it to the end of the story. Thanks for stopping by. If you think you might like a little more spooky in your life, well, there should be some links popping up at the end of this to other great stories, maybe even some great playlists that you can discover. We update 7 nights a week, so there's always something new and something spooky waiting for you on the channel. If you like your spooky a little more tactile, there should be some links to Amazon down in my description, so go have a look over there. It should get you to all my latest books. Speaking of books, I've got my first horror novel, Towsy Homestead, available for purchase on Amazon. It's my first horror novel, so I'd really appreciate it if you'd go give it a look and maybe give it a buy too. If you'd like to support the channel, we have a subscription program here on YouTube, but we've also got a Patreon with lots of tiers and lots of different rewards. For example, our Spooky Skeleton contributors get their spooky 12 hours early. That's right, they get their videos at 8:30 a.m. as opposed to 8:30 p.m. Ghostly Reader tier contributors, that's a tier that's only available on Patreon, I'm afraid, get a book anytime I write one, signed and on their doorstep, hopefully in a timely manner. So, however you support the channel, whether it's monetarily or by enjoying our great videos here, thank you so much. Speaking of patrons, before we go, let's go ahead and thank them. Thanks to Sara, Unicorn Hollow, JustAmy, and Cinnamon Fox for being our spooky ghost contributors. Thanks to Shannon McGhee, Janet, Lee Kendall, Ronda J, Sue Casper, Valinar, CleoHarperReturns, Sara, and Queen Sheebah for being our spooky skeleton contributors. And thanks to Oh Snap, Winter, Xaronan, Stephanie Carrington, Tyler Parker, Grim Reaper, TomBoiTopUwU, Queen Sheebah, MissNewBooty, and Alex Connor for being our Ghostly Reader tier contributors. Thanks everyone, we just couldn't do the show without you. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.